WNBA players were doing everything in their power to get rid of Caitlin Clark. This year, WNBA players have gotten exactly what they wanted. Watch it for yourself.
No return to practice. She's been able to get a little bit more in her full court running, with her all her body weight. It's really building up from doing minimal to then building some endurance to do longer periods of time. She's been able to do a little bit more on the court in terms of how she moves. But not into practice yet. No.
The woman who electrified basketball is sitting on the sidelines again. Caitlin Clark, the superstar who brought millions of eyes to women's basketball, hasn't stepped foot on a WNBA court in over a month. Her Indiana Fever teammates are fighting for their playoff lives without their leader. The question haunting every basketball fan right now, could this be it? Could Caitlin Clark's season actually be over?
Caitlin Clark has essentially missed the entire season, and the WNBA has suffered the consequences.
This is Caitlin Clark we're talking about. The woman who broke college basketball records, the player who made March Madness appointment television, the rookie who transformed the WNBA from a niche sport into must-see entertainment. She doesn't just sit out, she doesn't just quit. But right now, as we speak, she's been absent from the court for 12 straight games with a groin injury that nobody wants to put a timeline on.
Have patience at least several more weeks. Now, Scott Agnes is a beat reporter for the Indiana Fever. He has been covering them relentlessly all season. And
this isn't just another injury story. This is a nightmare scenario that started way back in April and has snowballed into something that could derail not just Clark's season, but potentially alter the trajectory of women's professional basketball. Because let's be honest here, when Caitlin Clark isn't playing, people aren't watching. And when people aren't watching, the entire league feels it.
The WNBA doesn't have anyone else who can drive consistent interest. And help is not on the way because it's looking more and more likely that Caitlin Clark is done for the season.
The warning signs were there from Game 1 of the 2025 WNBA season. Clark came into this year carrying the weight of impossible expectations. She was supposed to be the savior, the one who would single-handedly elevate the sport to new heights. But what nobody anticipated was that her body would start breaking down almost immediately. It started with a left quad strain just 4 games into the season. 4 games. That's all it took for the injury bug to bite the most important player in women's basketball. She missed time, came back, then went down again with a left groin injury that sidelined her for another stretch in late June and early July. Each time she returned, fans held their breath, hoping this would be the end of it.
And the craziest thing about this last groin injury with Caitlin Clark is how it's been covered. The day after she had the groin injury, she was listed as day-to-day. And then a couple weeks after that, then she was listed to being out.
But on July 15th, everything changed. The Fever were playing the Connecticut Sun, and Clark was having a solid game when disaster struck late in the 4th quarter. She grabbed her right groin and immediately knew something was wrong. The look on her face told the entire story. This wasn't just another minor tweak. This was serious. Since that moment, Caitlin Clark hasn't played a single minute of professional basketball. Not one. The Indiana Fever officially announced that she suffered a right groin sprain. But what they didn't announce was any kind of timeline for her return. In fact, they've been remarkably vague about the whole situation, which is never a good sign when it comes to athlete injuries. The team's official statement was clinical and terrifying in its simplicity. Clark would continue working with the medical team on her recovery and rehabilitation, with priority on her long-term health and well-being. No timetable, no additional details. Just a promise that updates would come when they became available. That was over a month ago.
But several more weeks pretty much puts Caitlin Clark to coming back at the very end of the regular season. If you look at the Indiana Fever's schedule right now, they only have 12 games left, and there is exactly 4 weeks left in the regular season.
What makes this situation even more heartbreaking is watching what's happened to Clark's teammates during her absence. The Fever started the season as playoff contenders with championship aspirations. They had built their entire identity around Clark's playmaking ability, her court vision, and her incredible scoring touch. Without her, they're a completely different team.
Every team is fighting for a spot in the playoffs. Caitlin Clark should not be thrown back into any mix if she doesn't have significant practices under her belt before she goes into game speed.
But here's the cruel twist that makes this story even more dramatic. Injuries haven't just hit Clark. They've devastated the entire Fever roster.
This has been a disastrous season for Caitlin Clark, and if you're the other players in the WNBA, it has been a disastrous season for you.
Sydney Colson went down with a season-ending ACL tear. Ari McDonald suffered her own season-ending injury. Most recently, Sophie Cunningham tore her MCL and was ruled out for the remainder of the campaign. 3 guards, all done for the year, leaving the Fever scrambling to find bodies just to fill out a lineup.
It sounds to me like Caitlin Clark is still in the process of rehab. I have followed the rehab process of Zion Williamson many times over the years. He will start going through drills, then he will start practicing one-on-one. He'll progress to 3-on-3 until he eventually gets to full practice 5-on-5. Caitlin Clark, it sounds like, hasn't even started the process.
When Clark sent a 3-word message on social media acknowledging these injuries, it felt like a captain watching her ship sink from the shore. She's been forced to watch helplessly as her team battles without her, struggling to maintain their playoff position while key players drop around them like dominoes. The numbers tell a stark story about just how much the Fever have missed their superstar. In the 13 games Clark has played this season, she's averaged 16.5 points, 8.8 assists, and 5.0 rebounds per game. Those aren't just good numbers, they're elite numbers from a player who makes everyone around her better. Without her on the court, the Fever's entire offensive system has had to be rebuilt from scratch. Since Clark's latest injury on July 15th, the team has managed a 6-6 record. On the surface, that doesn't look terrible. A .500 record keeps them in playoff contention. But when you dig deeper, you see a team that's hanging on by a thread, playing with backup players and hoping someone, anyone, can step up and fill the massive void left by their absent star. The emotional toll on Clark herself has to be immense. This is a player who thrives on competition, who lives for the biggest moments, who made her reputation by showing up when the stakes were highest. To be sitting on the sidelines during crunch time of the WNBA season must be eating her alive from the inside. Recent reports from ESPN suggest that the Fever are hoping Clark returns before the end of the regular season, but hope isn't a medical diagnosis. Hope doesn't heal torn muscle fibers. Hope doesn't guarantee that a player who has been battling multiple injuries all season long will suddenly be ready to carry a team through a playoff push.
And Scott Agnes was replying to someone else's comment who said, "Just can't wait until Cece is back. She's the most dynamic, electric player in the WNBA. Great job, Lexi." And then Scott Agnes replied and he said, "Have patience, at least several more weeks."
What's particularly concerning is the pattern of Clark's injuries this season. This isn't just one unlucky incident. She's dealt with a left quad strain, a left groin injury, and now a right groin sprain. That's 4 separate muscle injuries in the span of a few months for a player who rarely got hurt during her college career. Something is clearly wrong, and it goes beyond just bad luck. The medical experts will tell you that groin injuries can be tricky. They're notoriously difficult to heal properly, especially for athletes who rely on cutting, jumping, and explosive movements. Rush back too quickly, and you risk turning a minor injury into a major one. Take too much time, and you might miss your entire season. Clark underwent additional medical evaluations in late July, and while the team announced that no additional damage was found, the fact that she's still not playing suggests this injury is more complex than originally thought. Groin strains can linger for months if not treated properly, and for a player whose game depends on quick lateral movements and sudden direction changes, the risk of re-injury is always present. The broader implications of Clark's extended absence go far beyond just the Fever's playoff chances. Television ratings for WNBA games drop significantly when she's not playing. Attendance figures tell the same story. Marketing deals, sponsorship opportunities, and the overall growth trajectory of women's professional basketball. All of it is tied to Caitlin Clark being healthy and on the court.
We're a collective. Everyone loves us. Our league is filled with huge stars.
This is the harsh reality of being a transcendent athlete in a developing sport. Clark isn't just responsible for her own performance, she's carrying the weight of an entire league's aspirations. When she's healthy and playing at her peak, everyone benefits. When she's injured and sitting on the bench, everyone suffers. The clock is ticking toward the end of the regular season, and every game that passes without Clark makes her return less likely. Even if she does come back, there are serious questions about what kind of player she'll be after such an extended layoff. Groin injuries don't just affect physical ability, they mess with timing, rhythm, and confidence. Coach Stephanie White has been carefully optimistic in her public statements, but you can hear the concern in her voice when she talks about Clark's situation. This is a coach who knows that her team's championship aspirations live or die with their superstar point guard. Without Clark, they're just another team fighting for a playoff spot. With her, they have the potential to make noise in the postseason.
Maybe this season is just done for her. Maybe it doesn't make sense for her to come back into the mix if the Fever aren't contenders. Are the Fever contenders at this point? I'm just not so sure.
The heartbreaking truth is that this season was supposed to be Clark's victory lap. After a phenomenal rookie year that saw her win Rookie of the Year honors and earn first-team All-WNBA recognition, this was the year she was going to prove that her impact on women's basketball was no fluke. This was the year the Fever were going to take the next step as a franchise. Instead, we're left wondering if we've seen the last of Caitlin Clark in 2025. Every day that passes without news of her return makes that possibility more real. Every game the Fever plays without their star makes their playoff position more precarious. The most frustrating part is the uncertainty. In today's world of advanced sports medicine and detailed injury reports, the fact that Clark's timeline remains completely unknown is both unusual and ominous. Teams typically provide some kind of framework for return, even if it's vague. The complete silence around Clark's situation suggests this injury is either more serious than initially thought, or that complications have arisen during the healing process. So could Caitlin Clark be done for the season? The honest answer is that nobody knows for sure, and that uncertainty is perhaps the most telling indicator of all. In a sport where stars are expected to play through pain and return from injuries quickly, Clark's extended absence speaks volumes about the severity of her situation. What we do know is that time is running out. The WNBA regular season is winding down, and every day Clark spends in rehabilitation is one less day she has to get back into game shape and help her team make a playoff run. Even if she does return, she'll be coming back to a team that has been decimated by injuries and fighting just to stay above water. The woman who was supposed to be the savior of women's basketball is trapped in a race against time, battling her own body while watching her teammates struggle without her. Whether Caitlin Clark returns this season or not, one thing is certain. This injury saga has already fundamentally changed what was supposed to be a breakthrough year for both her and the sport she represents. The basketball world waits, hopes, and holds its breath. Because without Caitlin Clark on the court, everything feels just a little bit dimmer.